Ladies and gentlemen, my guest on Chair Shots to the Cranium is a very accomplished veteran in professional wrestling. He has successful runs in ECW, TNA, WWE, and as an MMA fighter. He's held countless championships throughout his career, including the TNA X Division Championship and WWE Cruiserweight Championship. And he continues to contribute his time and his talents on the independent wrestling scene. I'm happy to have as my guest today the one and only Kid Kash. How are you today?
I am great. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. Thanks for your time today.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, listen, I got to tell you, I had the privilege of interviewing you 16 years ago. It was 2003. You had just captured the X Division Championship in TNA. It's just it's exciting to speak with you again so many years later and to know you've had such a tremendous career.
16 years, man. Wow. We were talking about that earlier. Where did the time go, you know? It just flew by.
It's crazy. It's absolutely amazing how fast time goes by.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that we were both, doing our occupation in the wrestling industry, you know, even back then, you know, so it's pretty cool that it's lasted as long as it has, you know.
No doubt about it. Come full circle 16 years later is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
So tell the fans how you're doing and what's new in your life and your career.
I'm great, actually. I returned back in 2015, and I've been a project manager. I'm a high-end national construction company project manager. We build high-rises and skyscrapers and hotels and hospitals and just, you know, all kinds of things around the country. And outside of that, you know, still do my martial arts and stuff, training and stuff, and, do a fight here and there from time to time, just like the wrestling and stuff. But I started going back to wrestling a little bit about almost a year ago now. Started helping out some guys out in the Midwest, the Aero Club, and just really started liking the guys and being, you know, giving them advice and kind of like over the phone type training, you know. And then I wound up getting an outfit made and going out and tag teaming with them. And then from there, people started calling me again, you know. And so, I mean, I've been picking and choosing pretty much who when I work and if I would even want to work anymore, you know. But I got a couple of phone calls from Ron Gossett and stuff like that. So known him and his family for such a long time, and figured I would, what's another another match.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now that leads me into my next question: is you recently agreed to obviously appear with Universal Championship Wrestling and its president Ron Gossett. They have a show coming up on February the 2nd. How do you feel about this new arrangement with UCW?
I think it's great. You know, it's the wrestling is in my opinion has kind of gone a little stale.
Yeah.
You know, the WWE is not pumping out any really good stuff. I mean, I think they even apologized to their fans not too long ago.
Right.
You know.
Right.
It took them 10 years to realize it. You know, but at least they did. And you know, when you go buying up all the companies around the country and stuff, and you only have one major product and only one major place for, you know, guys to go, and right now it's so, oh my God, it's so congested with guys, you know, in that company now, you know, from the NXT to the training camp to 205 to, you know, everything, and the SmackDown and the Raw. You know, look how many guys they have now, you know. What are you going to do with them all?
Right.
And I think they got to the point where they were trying to invest so much in so many people that they were kind of shoving people down the fans' throats.
Now,
you know?
What I like about UCW is they of course, they live by the motto of tradition rises from the ashes.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of legends that come in to the shows, obviously, but you know they have a lot of great young talent. So it's a nice blend of terrific up and coming talent, and then your veterans like yourself coming in and doing and entertaining the crowd. So it's to me a really good independent wrestling company. It's on fire right now.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good news about it. And like I've known Ron for a long time, and we kept in touch over the years and stuff. And I think he finally, put some good stuff out there. And like I said, it's just good for the business.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well,
not saying that I know anything about anybody's companies, but like with Ring of Honor to WWE to the couple of even the new NWA, the Billy Corgan ball and stuff like that. People are trying to step outside the box, and that's awesome. That people want to use their minds and their creativity and stuff like that. But in the wrestling industry, the fans are either going to dig it or they're not.
Right, exactly.
So you can't keep pumping people out there, after 6 months. If they're not getting over, then it's time to, do something else. And that's what I like about, Ron's new company and stuff. Like you said, there's not just because they're bringing in, I don't like to call myself a veteran because I don't want to feel like I'm that old, but because even though I am old, I still feel like a kid at heart, so I still stay busy. I still work out every day. I still train every day. I still, do pretty much stay very, very active. And it's great that I get to go down here, and if I'm right and things are going to happen the way it was discussed with me, then I should be working PJ Black down there. And PJ I've worked before up in Nashville. And he's another new guy that I had never heard of when I first met him. And everybody was like, yeah, he was part of Nexus. And I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
And they're like, it was WWE. And I'm like, because I don't watch the product. I mean, I never really did. Mm-hmm. Honestly, even whenever I was wrestling full time, the only time I would watch any of it is whenever I was on it, because I wanted to see my match. But I never really watched any of the other shows, or any of the other matches. And so I was kind of like, who is this kid, And I was kind of like, from what I had seen up until that point, I wasn't very impressed with, I don't know, how do you feel about the Shield guys?
Yeah, the Shield.
I think they were, just in my opinion, I think they were shoved down the people's throats. I don't think that they get near the pop of what my era of wrestlers did. The Rock, Stone Cold, the Shawn Michaels, hell, even me, and whenever I was with the Pitbulls, I remember walking out and just having the roof come off the place, So, those guys don't get those types of reactions, and I don't know, I guess they're just making way, way too much of a soap opera. It's way too much more talking anymore. Not enough wrestling, not enough sheer talent out there anymore.
Well, let's talk a little bit about independent wrestling, because in my opinion, I've had this conversation with past interviews that I've done. In my opinion, I think the current state of independent wrestling is at an all-time high. That's, again, my opinion. What's your feelings on it?
I kind of disagree.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, I think the kids on the indies are just doing what they see on TV. There's only a few guys that really impress me, still to this, in this era.
Yeah.
And it's because they figured it out. You can go out there and be a high flyer. Yeah. I love the fact that the smaller guys are in nowadays, which is great. Back in my day, you probably saw it. I was the Cruiserweight champion in the WWE, but after a year, they kind of tend to put the Cruiserweights on a back burner. Then they bring out the tag teams, and then they do that for a year, and then they bring out the women. They feature, certain classes year by year, but I've noticed in the last good 10 years. The smaller guy is the ones getting the jobs,
Yeah.
and being the heavyweight champion. So it's kind of, and that's another thing, wrestling is just become so unrealistic anymore,
Yeah.
I was in it, we lived, breathed, and was bred to protect the business regardless of anything or what anybody said, so we did, and then midway through my career, of course, it gets trampled on. Sorry. between Bischoff and McMahon, you know. But even then, we, you know, the guys that came into my era, we still stuck to our guns. We still defended the business, you know. But nowadays, you know, you got, you know, no disrespect, because I love the guy to death, Rey Mysterio, AJ Styles. You know, those guys are legitimate light heavyweights. They're not heavyweights. You know, how is it realistic for those guys to be beating, you know, like the Undertakers, you know, the John Cenas and those kind of guys, you know?
Yeah, no, I get that point, and it's been made by a lot of podcasters like myself, and that, hey, you know, if you put these two guys in a bar or in a back alley, you know, who's really going to win? You say, for example, the example was made of Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler. I mean, you put these two guys head to head in a back alley, you know, realistically, who's going to come out the winner on that one? You know, some people say, well, it's Drew McIntyre. I don't know. I sometimes disagree with that. I feel like no matter what the man's size is, everybody's got to fight. You know what I'm saying? And you never know how it could come out. But
you don't. I mean, I fooled a lot of people over the years. So
yeah.
I've seen a lot of people be fooled over the years.
Right.
I've seen Drew McIntyre, and I just don't get it with that guy, honestly. I mean, he looks great. You know, he could be a freaking male model, you know?
Yeah.
But his wrestling is, I don't know. He just doesn't stand out to me. You know, when I watch him, I don't see anything that really pops, you know, other than he's tall. And he's got long hair, and he's a good-looking guy.
Yeah.
But for some reason, they really like him, and I don't think that he's getting over as much as they think that he is.
Yeah.
You know, because, I mean, when you're, you know, you go to the Indies, you know, and stuff, so whenever I go to the Indies, one thing I've always loved about my fans is they are like me. They just say it like it is. And I'll be signing autographs, you know, and sitting around talking to the fans and stuff like that. They'll tell you who they like. You know, you hear it over and over and over and over again, you know. And it's like the fans, to me, are still talking about Batista. They're still talking about Randy Orton. They're still talking about Kid Cash. They're not really mentioning too much about Drew McIntyre or even Roman Reigns. You know, he was the world heavyweight champion. People weren't bringing his name out there, you know. They're still talking about Shawn Michaels. They're still talking about Triple H. So that just tells me that my era was probably the last era of pure wrestling.
Well, let's talk about your time in ECW. I mentioned in my opening statement you had a very successful career in ECW. How did the ECW locker room differ from other locker rooms that you experienced in your career?
It was very welcoming. It was like after you know that you were in, and you just didn't go in. That's what I loved about that company. I mean, it wasn't the politics of like WWE, WCW, or even TNA. It was if you got a job, and it was judged by the guys, by the boys.
Yeah.
That's the way it was. If the boys liked you and the boys, you know, gave you the thumbs up, then you stayed. And then you still didn't have a job. You were just there, and they let you work, you know, until somebody was impressed enough to where, you know, they would come and ask you, you know, about a contract. You know, that's what happened to me. You know, so, but everybody there, we all had 100% freedom of our characters. Nobody told us anything to say on our promos. All of our promos were off the top of our heads, right off the bat. They let us do everything. They let us design our own characters. You know, like they gave me the name Kid Cash, but I came up with the look. You know, I came up with the Kid Rock, you know, entry song and stuff like that, and naming my moves after, you know, money stuff, you know, money things and stuff like that, you know. But they gave you 100% freedom, you know, and everybody there knew that we weren't in the WWE. They knew we weren't in the WCW, but we had a company that fans around the world were really starting to dig a lot, you know. So every single night to us was like being at WrestleMania.
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
great.
I mean, we worked our asses off, and they just let us be creative, and I love that about that company. You know, Paul was was very insistent that, you got to find out who your character is. You got to find. I can't tell you who Kid Cash is. You got to let me know who Kid Cash is.
Well, let's talk about Paul Heyman for a second, because clearly, he's influenced a tremendous amount of careers. What were some of the things you learned from Paul in your career?
How emotion in my matches. He used to talk to me a lot. My grandmother died. She kind of pretty much raised me, and she died while I was on the road, and we were in New Hampshire. And, I just found out when I got to the building. We had literally pulled up in the parking lot. My sister called me. So, but I was going to do the weekend, and he came in and he was like, I heard your mother died. I was like, well, she's my grandmother, but she's the one who raised me pretty much, And he's like, so that was your mother? And I was like, yeah, you can say that. He's like, well, we'll get you right back to the airport. And I was like, no, I'm here. She's dead. As much as I hate it, there's nothing I can do, and the funeral's not even going to be until next week. So, he was impressed by that, and but he pulled me to the side that night, and he was like, listen, he goes, I want you to dig down in your heart, and he goes, I can see you've been crying, and I'm like, well, yeah, my grandmother died. He goes, I want you to take that emotion with you to the ring, however you feel right now, I want you to bring it out. I want to see it on that monitor. I want to see it in your eyes, that kind of stuff, and I already knew what he was talking about because I was trained by the Rock and Roll Express.
Right.
So, I came in the business with that selling mentality and, giving it, your facial expressions and, stuff like that, making everything look like it's for real, So I did it anyway. And it just really impressed him and stuff that, that I stayed and stuff. And that I did do what he said, I went out there and I worked the camera really hard just for him, And about 2 weeks later, I won the World Television title.
Let's move on to your time in TNA. You were brought into the company in the summer of 2002, and you stayed with them until the spring of 2005. Tell me about your time in TNA, and how did it help you grow as a professional wrestler?
It didn't help me grow in any sense other than business.
Yeah.
Because I learned a lot about how, the business can be to somebody.
Right.
It was a bumpy ride. I'm not going to lie about it. It was a bumpy ride. I mean, I love and appreciate everybody that I worked with there, but I guess it's all in who's running the company and what their vision is. I just left ECW, a top star, one of their top guys, and then from there, I signed a contract with WCW. I got the contract and I did one match. I did one Thunder show.
And then they folded after that, right? That's when they got bought by WWE?
The very next week, they got bought by WWE.
Right, I remember that. Yeah.
They were gonna keep me. Jimmy Hart was my agent at the time, and so we discussed it. They wanted to renegotiate a contract that I literally had just signed. That was really nice. That I liked, And then they were like, "We want to keep you, but this is the thing. We want you to move to Cincinnati. We want to renegotiate your contract." We're going to take you down to like whatever your contract is now. Everybody's going to get paid the same thing. It's $65,000 a year, and you're going to wait until we call you up. And I was like, well, I'm already hot. Why? I don't want to go stale.
Right.
So
right.
Jimmy and Hulk Hogan started the XWF, so I went there. Left the WCW and the WWE. Withdrew the contract. They gave me a release. I signed with the Home Shopping Network, QVC, through Jimmy Hart and those guys. But I had a 3-year deal with those guys and no compete clause. The company didn't pan out. We did like 8 TV shots, 8 TV tapings, and I was the Cruiserweight champion. I beat AJ Styles for the Cruiserweight title and Christopher Daniels in a 3-way. And let's see, because I had a no-compete clause, I continued to get paid for the entire 3 years. Okay, But in that time, I signed with TNA. TNA was fresh. It had just opened. They had only had like a couple of shows before I actually started working for them. And it was just a lot, it was just deceitful lies the whole entire time, and I understood what they were trying to do. They were trying to bring a brand new company, bring brand new guys in that nobody had ever heard of and make stars out of them, But at that point, they were trying to take people like me and other guys that had just been somewhere and had established themselves and, became stars in other places to just put these boys over, work them in programs and, put them over every single night. And I just wasn't ready for that, My career was still young and I didn't want to do that, So, it was an up and down kind of a deal with them. And all the younger guys that nobody knew were winding up getting paid a whole lot more than the veterans were, the guys that were coming and making them stars.
Right.
Yeah, and then it was just lie after lie, really. It's like, if you sign with this, by next year, I can double it. Well, that double never came.
Oh, wow.
And then they would put stuff in their contracts. I wouldn't have been there as long as I was if they hadn't wrote it into the contract. They had the rights to roll me over on merchandise. If they sold any of my merchandise, then they could roll me over at the end of the year. And they did it twice. I only signed for a year the first time. The second time they rolled me over, and I had no other choice. So I spent 3 total years there. So I just got to the point where enough was enough, and I just started making noise, and enough noise to where they released me. But in that same day that I got released, I got signed with the WWF.
Well, yeah, that leads me to my next question. So you had your run with ECW, you had your run with TNA, and all of a sudden here comes WWE calling in 2005. What was that experience like with the WWE, not just in the ring, but in the locker room with the other wrestlers, on the roster, with the upper management, with the writers? How would you compare the WWE experience with what you experienced thus far with ECW and TNA?
Well, WWE was so much more professional. It's corporate, and you know it. WCW was too, but WWE shows it. They live it. Everything is professional. Everything is so much bigger. When you walk in the back, it's it's an enormous production. They treat you really good. You get catering that's, like you would get at a 5-star restaurant. They treat you really good. They pay you very, very well. The guys already knew me. Undertaker, I'd been wrestling for quite a while at that point anyway, so whenever I got there, Taker knew who I was, Shawn Michaels knew who I was, me and Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit, we'd been on the road together over in Japan and Mexico.
Nice.
So, we were already a little clique to begin with, I used to ride with Chris Benoit all over freaking Japan, and we roomed together and stuff. Me and Eddie did the same thing, So, yeah, the guys already knew who I was, and I didn't have any problems. I was welcomed. So the day I walked in the dressing room, everybody was like, "Holy shit, what are you doing here? Holy shit, can't believe you're finally here." Because I'd been there a dozen times over the years, coming in. They would call me up. They're like, "Hey, we'd like to have you come down and try out." Okay, great. So I'd come down and try out and have a good match with them. And then they'd be like, "Hey, come, do the weekend with us." So I wound up doing the weekend with them, and then everything was great. Everybody was nice, and then I'd never hear from them again until next year when they came back around.
Yeah.
So, we did that for a couple of years, on and off, and then but through that, everybody, had already met everybody. People that, had already seen my work, through ECW and TNA and and everything else. So I was already pretty established.
Well, being a former Cruiserweight champion, you look at the product now, you look at 205 Live now, the current Cruiserweight roster. What are your thoughts?
They need to slow down just a little bit. It's kind of weird how, well, it's not weird, but when I was there, you remember my ECW days.
Right.
I was very much an extreme high flyer. You know, I dove into the crowd. I came off balconies, went through tables. TNA, pretty much the same thing. WCW, that we had plans for, you know, to bring a little bit of the ECW to the light heavyweight division. And so when I got to WWE, you know, I already had established moves and people, you know, the Money Maker, the Money in the Bank, and, you know, the Money Roll and all, you know, all the big signature moves that I used to do. So when I got there, one of them was the pile driver, the Money Maker pile driver.
Right.
And
right.
never in my life have I ever heard anybody with that move, ever. And it just looks really mean, you know. And first thing I did when I walked in there, I got a list. I sat down in the dressing room, and then I can't think, it was Mark Carrano or something like that, before he was talent relations. He came in and gave me a list of moves that I could no longer do because there was already guys there doing them. Like, I couldn't even do that. Yeah, I remember in ECW, I was doing the Hurricanrana everywhere, you know, in the ring, out of the ring, you know, all over the damn place, off the ropes to the floor, you know. And I couldn't even do that anymore because Rey Mysterio does the Rana. Couldn't do my twisted moonsault, the second rope to the top rope moonsault, because Super Crazy does the moonsault. I couldn't do the pile driver, period, because it was outlawed.
Right.
Yeah, there was just there was like a list of moves that I was told I couldn't do anymore, you know, because somebody had already established that move. And I was like, well, I established it. I've been doing this shit for 15 years, you
Exactly.
know. You know, they're like, well, you know, they're doing it here. And I'm like, okay, hey, whatever, dude. So that's why I got the dead level, the brain buster for the finish. And then I kind of just, you know, finagled some of my old moves and turned them into other things, you know. But other than that, they treated me very well. I mean, you know, I got really no complaints about that company at all, you know. It's fast-paced, it's moved, it's very demanding. Probably the most demanding company I ever worked for.
So would you say that the current state of the Cruiserweight division is in a good spot right now? Or do you think there's some room for improvement? You said earlier they need to slow down a little bit.
Yeah, if they slow down, yeah, when I see these guys on 205, NXT, or even the Cruiserweights there on, you know, the SmackDown and Raw, I see Ring of Honor. That's all I see.
Right.
It's move after move. It's change spots and stuff like that. Now, like I was saying, back whenever I was there, we weren't allowed to do all of those moves. They didn't want us to do spot after spot after spot. They wanted us to do a rest hold. They wanted us to actually show an arm drag and a hip toss and a backdrop, you know, and stuff like that. They wanted us to show actual wrestling moves along with the high flying. Mm-hmm. But whenever I watch it now, it's ring the bell and it's a half-ass lockup into running, jumping, dodging, diving out of the ring, you know what I'm saying, then move. And if it's a tag team, then everybody's getting their move in, you know.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, to me, it's no different than watching Ring of Honor. And I like Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor's good, but again, they kick out of more finishing moves than I've ever seen, and they finish with moves that are less impressive out of the moves that they kicked out of.
True. Yeah, true.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like where I'm at with the WWE light heavyweights.
Well, let's transition into my Cranium Shot portion of the interview. I'm going to say a name from your past, okay? And you give me your first reaction. It can be a one-word answer. It can be several words, okay? Whatever comes to mind. You ready?
Right.
New Jack.
Insane. Needs to go to jail.
Mike Awesome.
One of my best friends. I will miss him so much.
C.W. Anderson.
That guy, I love to death. I've had some of my best matches with that guy ever in the history of my career, to be honest with you.
Amazing Red.
I've had some of probably the most memorable matches I'll ever have as a light heavyweight in the X division was with Amazing Red. That little guy is amazing. I mean, that his name expresses him completely in my eyes. He's just amazing.
All right, finally, AJ Styles.
Hey, his name's phenomenal. The guy's he's got it together. He did everything right, and look where he's at. I mean, he's phenomenal.
Kid Kash, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with me. It's been an absolute honor, especially coming full circle again 16 years later.
Hey, man, it's been a pleasure, first of all, and second of all, yeah, I mean, 16 years. I was just laughing about it. I can't believe it. I remember when we did the last one, such a long time ago.
Well, I'm just glad we're both here.
Well, tell me about it. Nowadays, you never know what's going to happen in the world. So,
absolutely. You gotta every day's a gift.
We're blessed, man. Thank Jesus, I tell you that.
No doubt about it. Well, where can fans find you on social media?
On my Facebook, my Twitter, David. So I think the Twitter's David K Cash, and then my Facebook is David Cash, and then I have an Instagram. I don't really know the name of it, but you can see it. You can find it. Just put my name in. They'll search it.
Fans, go follow him. Keep up with Kid Kash. You don't want to miss what he's got coming up next. Universal Championship Wrestling will be a place you'll be able to find Kid Kash. Buy a ticket to Universal Championship Wrestling Super Brawl show taking place on Saturday, February the 2nd in Griffin, Georgia. Buying a ticket is real easy. Just go to their website, ucwtv.com. You can also follow Universal Championship Wrestling on social media. It's at UCWTV to find out more about this fantastic independent wrestling company. Congratulations on being part of Universal Championship Wrestling and for the tremendous success you've had over your career.
Thank you, man. I'm looking forward to working with these guys, definitely, and working with the not even just the matches, but working with the young guys, and hopefully throwing a little bit of influence their way,
Absolutely. I'll look forward to seeing you.
Absolutely, buddy. Keep up.
All right, man.